I'm really glad that DC has been doing their dollar comics, kind of like how Marvel has been doing their True Believers run, because it enabled me to finally have a reader copy of Swamp Thing #1. And just right off the bat, I wanted to let everyone know that Swamp Thing was created by Len Wein. And what I love is how when you first start reading this comic book, the artwork style by, what's his name? Bernie Wrightson, it's very much akin to the 70s horror comic genre. So you could see like remnants of like House of Secrets, or what's the other one? Tales from the Crypt. All those good horror comics from that time period. Which, with that said, Swamp Thing his first appearance was House of Secrets #92, which I believe was from 1971. The print date on this book was 1972. Now, with that said, check this out. So Len Wein, created this book and finally got a solo series out of it. But in House of Secrets, when you read it, the character's name is Alec Olson, or Alexander Olson, from what I saw on DC's website. And then when they did the solo book a year later, they changed it to Alec Holland. And then, as we all know, once this run was done, the book was handed over to Alan Moore, who just ran with that series and did such an amazing job on it. And he found a way, I think it was him, if I'm wrong, let me know. But from what I understand, Alan Moore was the one that kind of showed how this Alexander Olson was the predecessor to Alec Holland. And also some other things. So if you guys want to check that out, check out Alan Moore's run. You're not going to be disappointed. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into this book. And I just love this opening scene of Swamp Thing. And there's no context of why he's Swamp Thing. We just see him thinking, saying, "They will return, those who killed me. They will return, and I'll be waiting." And so we see this barn house, just, this dark, brooding, moody splash page, masterfully done. And then we get a stark contrast where it says, "Color, the first day of blue, crisp, shining, full of promise and open-eyed dreams." And so you come to find out that Alec Holland and his wife were sent to the bayou to work on their hush-hush government secret project, which was a biorestorative formula. So the government sent them out here to kind of, sequester them so that they won't have to worry about being hassled by other people trying to buy them like a commodity, because their biorestorative formula, as the FBI agent here says, whoever controls it controls the world. And now what I love about Len Wein, and every time I've read his books, it just, again, these old school writers have this great subtle way of building suspension and exposition without blathering it through the dialogue. Well, they do, but it's still subtle. So check this out. They come into the barn and they see that it's covered with all this equipment that they need. And Alex says, "Thought of everything, didn't they? We've got enough equipment here for a dozen Dr. Frankensteins. Seems almost a shame we're not building a monster." So when you first read that, you don't think about it. But then as you finish the book, you go, wait a minute, and it started making me page turn. And so that's what I love about subtlety like that with subtext. Subtlety, subtext. Say that 3 times fast. And so the scientist husband-wife team here start working on it, and they say that the compound worked, as he says, better than it should have. Now, this is where I sometimes think, like in horror movies, horror comics, people lose common sense because they get a knock on the door and they go, "Oh, that must be Matt Cable, who's the FBI or CIA agent or whatever he is." But we find out that there's this guy named Ferret. And he just, like him and his cronies, just look like the legit goon squad bad guys. And of course they got the shadows, the elongated face, the super, shadowy eyes to just show that ominous malevolence about, malevolence. I was like, wait a minute. And they threaten him. saying we've been said that we can give you a blank check, and so you better take it to so there's not going to be any problems. But Alec says, no, it's not for sale. And so this guy Ferret's saying, well, maybe we can convince you otherwise. But before they can do anything, Matt Cable is doing rounds around the bayou, and he conveniently shows up. The thugs leave, and Alec's like, where were you? He's like, well, there was reports of a false, or not a false car, but an unregistered vehicle. And he's like, well, you should have checked here first, dum-dum. So, yeah. They seem very lax. Even though this is supposed to be like a secret project, the FBI agent's like, well, you've got to be more careful. And it's like, yeah. And then, my problem with Alex, he didn't even answer. He's like, who's there? Just opens the door. And it happens again right here where they're working. They're a little more shooken up now. But they hear a knock. And he's like, you heard what Matt Cable said. We need to figure out who it is. And I'm not going to take any chances. So draws a gun, opens it, and like in any horror story, here's the false reveal. And it's a dog. And that dog actually has some significance that I don't want to give away. Just needless to say that the dog has meaning to the story. And so with that said, Ferret and his cronies come back, and because Alec will not sell his formula, and Matt Cable's gone. At this point too, I wonder where his wife was, because it's just him at this point. So that was a little bit of a continuity error in from what I was reading, because it's just him. You see this guy plant a bomb, and you just see that look of dread, like, oh my God, that thing is ticking. And then you see the bioregenerative formula here start to crack, and the bomb goes off. We'll get past the ad. And that's such a great panel. I mean, the subject matter is not great, but just the use of the action lines, the ink and the dark, just, and the onomatopoeia. And then just right here where, you see Alec just with the action lines where he just looks almost non-human. And then right here it says, and you can almost, the way Wein writes this, it says, imagine pain so intense it defies description, as countless unclassified chemicals seep deep into throbbing, fume-enveloped flesh. Imagine what such terrible suffering can do to the fragile mind as it drives the stricken body forward, clawing desperately at the cool night air in hopes of some small comfort. Imagine relief as the smoldering man-shape reaches the soothing waters of the ever-present bog, then disappears soundly beneath its bubbling surface. And you can almost feel that. I mean, just look at the face here where you just see that harrowing pain. Okay, can't take it. You can just almost feel it, almost smell it. And then, as I said, after this tragicness, and you see Alec by himself, there's a funeral, and all his wife says is, poor Alec, if only I had been there. Well, where had she gone? I mean, did she go grocery shopping? Was she patrolling with Matt Cable when she should have been working on her bio-restorative formula? So that's the only probably leap in logic that that is my issue with this comic book. But other than that, it's still great, because Matt takes her back to the lab, and she goes, oh, the project, that goes on regardless, doesn't it, Cable? Nobody cares about the people that live or die here. Only the miserable project. Afraid so, Linda. But with Alec gone, you're the only one left who can handle it. And again, this is Wein's way of doing a great foreshadowing, because it starts raining, and Cable here says, funny, when I was a kid, it used to rain like this, dark, chilling, as if the sky were alive and living and felt pain. It feels that way again tonight, and lady, I don't like it. So, yeah. and you get this nice little, what do you call it, juxtaposition of what Matt's saying, and it shows how Swamp Thing comes to be. And it's so tragic what happens to this guy, but it's such a good read. And then again, just the horror element. Again, like I said, horror is one of my favorite genres, so just reading it this way, very much right up my alley. And I love the way that what's his name? Bernie just writes, when they introduce Swamp Thing, they actually give the name, like the title, and you just see him in the rain, like, being like a rebirth. And he wants to go to Linda, see if she can help, but then he sees his reflection, and he just, oh! So again, you get that kind of, how they always use mirrors as a way to express the soul or the way of a psyche in movies and whatnot. Very much used this way, because he's just terrified of the way he looks, and he can't bring himself to talk to Linda. And then, of course, he sees Ferret getting out of the barn, because something happens with Linda. You want to know what it is? They have these dollar comics at your local comic shop. But Swamp Thing's trying to talk, and he says, "I said, stop!" And you just see Ferret fly out of the window, and he just, great splash page. I love just the negative space of the sky with just a little bit of the rain, and all the action is just right down here. Just absolutely beautifully done. So yeah, guys, this great. This comic book. I wish I could have had an original copy of Swamp Thing #1. Because right here, but Alec Holland is dead, and in his place stands only a Swamp Thing. Yeah, this was an amazing comic book by Len Wein, and I could see why. I mean, I've always enjoyed Swamp Thing, but kind of finally going back and reading the original book where it all started, I could see how he has always had a following, and then how just his popularity increased with the masterful work of Alan Moore. And the Swamp Thing series that Len Wein was trying to write before, tragically he passed away, I read a few issues of that, and it very much, like the artwork and his style of writing, harkens all the way back to what he started in 1972. So if you want some good Swamp Thing reading, make sure to check out the series that he was working on before he passed, because it was absolutely good stuff. And so is this issue, guys. So with that said, if you don't want to try to pony up the money for an original copy of Swamp Thing #1, make sure to support your local comic shop, and either, if you can, get the original, or if not, they have that dollar rack, and that's where you can get this issue. And that's why I said I'm glad that DC's finally starting to do what Marvel's doing, is reprinting their big story arcs so that people can reread them and enjoy them, especially for those of us that, look at the price tag on the wall of the original and you're like, So with that said, guys, if you've enjoyed this comic or this review or both, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. That way you can get your friends excited about reading. And with that said, we'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments or on one of our social media sites. We'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. And with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by on your Monday morning, guys. I hope that it's brightened your day. And I'll check y'all on the next review. And remember to always have fun reading.